Overseas, an adult film star, Stormy Daniels, has given her final testimony in Donald Trump's hush money trial. Earlier this week, Ms Daniels detailed her alleged sexual encounter with the former US president in 2006. Today, Mr Trump's lawyers attempted to discredit her claims, accusing Ms Daniels of trying to profit off her story and making parts of it up. In a tense back and forth exchange, the New York court saw tweets from Ms Daniels where she said, "I'll dance down the street" when he is selected to go to jail. It's alleged Ms Daniels received almost $200,000 for her silence during the 2016 presidential election campaign. Mr Trump is charged with falsifying business records to conceal the payment.
I want to thank my lawyers. They've done a very good job, but I'd rather thank them after it's over as opposed to now, because we don't want them to get carried away. There's no case. Should have never been brought out.
Donald Trump has always denied a sexual encounter with Ms Daniels. He's pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records. Well, journalist Anna Bauer has been in court for the proceedings and she joins us now from New York. Good morning, Anna. Thank you for your time. We saw this continued cross-examination of Stormy Daniels today. Just how effective was the defence in attacking her, discrediting her, attacking her credibility and her version of events back from 2006?
Well, I do think there were some moments in which the defense did seem to score some points. They displayed various tweets in which Stormy Daniels, for example, once Trump was indicted, was promoting her store, her merchandise store. She has an online business. She made comments in which she said that she would have a special for anyone who, for the next 45 hours, 45 because Donald Trump was the 45th president, would get a free gift if they purchased items from her store. So in that respect, there were a few maybe small points in which the defense was able to gain some ground in trying to get to their core theme that Stormy Daniels is motivated by money and that her testimony and that her career for the past several years has really been built on trying to tell her story about Donald Trump. With that said, I really think that ultimately at the end of the day, they lost a lot of ground, especially when it came to trying to show the jury or suggest to the jury that Stormy Daniels' core claims about her sexual encounter with Donald Trump in 2006 was in some way false or not credible. They tried to suggest that because she is an adult film actress, that she is someone who could not, in fact, feel that there was a power imbalance with the billionaire who invited her to a hotel suite at that time. They tried to suggest that what one reporter described to me was the nutty and slutty defense. They suggested that she was both crazy and someone who, as an adult film actress, simply just could not be telling the truth about this because she is someone who maybe should not be surprised that Donald Trump came on to her or made advances towards her. They brought up, for example, that one of Stormy Daniels' side businesses involves tarot card readings. So they tried to suggest that she is a fabulist. It really just did not work. It felt like it was of another era, as if it was from the 80s or something. This is a jury that is a quite young jury. It is a jury that has a number of women on it. And I just really don't think that that kind of victim blaming defense is going to hit very well with those folks. However, I can't see into the minds of the jurors, so we'll see.
Yeah, of course, indeed. And what about this idea where the emotions for a mistrial from the defense?
Right. So the defense, as a result of the testimony that was elicited from the prosecution from Stormy Daniels on Tuesday, in which she went into great detail about her sexual encounter with Donald Trump, she testified to several details that the defense objected to, and they therefore moved for a mistrial, stating that it was too prejudicial to Donald Trump to have many of these details elicited. For example, the prosecution asked if Donald Trump was wearing a condom during this sexual encounter, and she said no, he was not. That was one of the kind of core aspects of that testimony that they had an issue with. They moved for a mistrial. Justice Merchan, however, said Well, you put the story into play because during opening statements, when you're making your arguments to the jury, you put into question her credibility by suggesting that the story about this sexual encounter was indeed false. Trump has long claimed that Stormy Daniels was making up this story and that they never did have any sexual relations. That is exactly what the defense said in their opening statements. And so the judge basically said, you open the door to this. The prosecution had a right to kind of corroborate the story of Stormy Daniels as a result, and eliciting many of these details went exactly to corroborating that story. And then he also mentioned as well that the defense failed to object on several of these questions that were being asked by the prosecution. And so they made their own bed and then now have to sleep in it.
Okay. So beyond Stormy Daniels' testimony, are there other witnesses that we'll be hearing from? What more are you expecting?
Right. So we do have a number of witnesses that are expected. Some of them include the star witness to come, which is Michael Cohen. That is the attorney who allegedly arranged this payment to Stormy Daniels. He's a man who, however, potentially has some credibility issues. He did plead guilty in the past to making false statements. It's expected that his testimony will take several days and may come towards the end of the case. In the meantime, we still will have the continuation of testimony of Trump's White House executive assistant, Madeleine Westerhout. She has been testifying to, for example, his practices in terms of signing checks and taking a great interest in his personal financial aspects of various matters when he was in the White House. That is very important, of course, for establishing his intent and knowledge in signing these checks that were allegedly falsified to cover up the payment to Stormy Daniels.
So in reflection on today's, your time in court today, how would you surmise how Ms. Daniels performed on the witness stand? And I'd also like to get your assessment of how Donald Trump seemed to be observing all of it.
I actually thought that Stormy Daniels performed very well on the witness stand today. She did not give a lot of ground when, for example, Susan Necheles, who was Trump's attorney, was really trying to, I think, shame her or to suggest that she should feel some shame for being a person who is in the adult film industry. She really was not giving any ground on that. She also had a lot of explanations that sounded very logical in terms of some of the potential inconsistencies in her statements that she's made in the past. They elicited a testimony and had questions about various interviews that she's given over the years about her encounter with Donald Trump. And she explained at multiple points within her testimony that there are contexts in which you maybe will, provide a certain level of detail. For example, when you're giving an interview to a celebrity magazine versus if you're giving an interview in the context of an investigation where there are more detailed questions being asked. So I really think she had a lot of good explanations for some of those inconsistencies. There were times when, yes, she did admit that she is someone who is not a fan of Donald Trump. And so it remains to be seen exactly how the jury will assess that in determining, how bias or prejudice might really have impacted her testimony today. But I think overall, it seemed that she is not someone who walks away from this looking like a witness who is not credible. And the core part of her testimony, which relates to that 2006 sexual encounter, remains intact.
Okay. And just finally, Anna, how did you observe Donald Trump watching on?
Right. So Trump, I look, he was closing his eyes a lot during all of this. I will say that on Tuesday, there was a very interesting moment in which during Stormy Daniels' testimony, he got very upset. He was visibly muttering underneath his breath. We later from the transcript were able to find out that in fact, he had muttered some curse words that were audible to the judge, and the judge instructed Todd Blanche, his attorney, to speak with him to tell him that that is not something that's acceptable. So today, Trump was actually on better behavior, but he spent much of Stormy Daniels' testimony with his eyes closed, as though he did not want to be there, did not want to be listening to it or seeing it. But he has said in the past that whenever he does that, he is listening and not sleeping. So it's unclear exactly what was going on there, but he was on much better behavior.
Because he is under some gag orders as well. Is he adhering to those about who and what he can say and what he can't say about certain people?
He has been for the past several days, since he was held in contempt yet again for violating the gag order. However, his team did request a modification of the gag order this afternoon. They claimed that Stormy Daniels is out in the media making statements about him, and that he therefore should be allowed to respond to her. That again led to a very tense exchange and moment between his counsel and the judge, in which the judge said, I cannot accept your promises that he's not going to attack her, and that he in fact, may very well do just that, because I have seen his conduct in the past and it speaks for itself. So the judge declined to modify that gag order to allow him to speak specifically about Stormy Daniels, whose testimony finished today. And then, so I think that we will see if Trump can abide by that. But for now, it seems that he actually has changed some of his behavior. And so we'll see what happens. But I will not be surprised if he is tempted to violate the gag order again. But the judge has said that if he does so, he will find it necessary to consider jail time.
Anna Bauer, thank you so much for that comprehensive update.
Thanks so much.